Hey everyone, it's 10 Types back at it again, reviewing the final portion of the meta, that being the Pokemon VDEX, aka V-Stars and VMAXs, because regular basic Vs aren't really good right now, unfortunately, although that might be good because they're kind of unfun for a little while. So there are a few decks we're going to be taking a look at, I think like 8 or so, and they're really interesting. There's a wide variety of them, obviously, as I said, VMAX and V-Stars, but they are very powerful. VMAXs, if you don't know, are three prize Pokemon that are essentially stage ones, and they also, I don't know, there's not too much special about them. V-Stars are a bit more interesting. They are two prizers, stage ones. Both VMAXs and V-Stars evolve from Vs. But V-Stars give up two prizes. They're, again, kind of like stage ones. Slightly lower HP, of course, generally in that 280 range versus VMAX are like 310. And then V-Stars have a V-Star Power, which is a once per game attacker ability you can use. However, you can use a V-Star Power through the use of a tool card, such as Force Seal Stone, which is, I think, in a lot of these lists. There's also Sky Seal Stone, Earth and Seal Stone. Those don't see as much play, though. So, first of all, the deck we're going to be taking a look at here is going to be Mew VMAX. And Mew VMAX is a very powerful card. It's been amazing since it came out. And it's Fusion Strike Pokemon. It is essentially the Fusion Strike Pokemon. It's an attack here, Cross Fusion Strike, for 2 colors, and also Spherity, which is nice. But you choose one of your bench Fusion Strike Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack, Max Miracle, which you can copy using Cross Fusion Strike if you have a different Mew VMAX on the bench. It does 130 and also hits through effects. So if your opponent's playing, let's say, Mimikyu, which is immune to Pokemon Vs, including VMAXs, you can go in with Mimikyu and just hit through that. It's a nice option to have. Of course, there are other options in the deck. The main attack here is going to be Genesect V. And Genesect V is like really good. It's debatably one of the best Pokemon cards ever. I'd say it's, I don't know, it is very strong. Fusion Strike system says once on your turn, you may draw until you have as many cards in your hand as you have Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. Let's say you have a full bench of Fusion Strike Pokemon. Then you're just going to be drawing until you have 6 cards in hand. And you can use this for each Genesect you have. So you can theoretically draw 24 cards in a turn using Genesect Vs, which is absurd. You don't need to do that, but you could do that. The deck has almost unlimited draw power. And then Technoblast for Metal colors. Keep in mind you're going to be copying this with Mew VMAX, so it's actually only 2 colors. It does 210, and then you can't attack next turn. But as I said earlier, Mew VMAX has free retreat. Additionally, the last piece of the puzzle is Mew V itself. This has a really interesting attack psychically, and that says you must shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck, and you do 70 damage. This is essentially healing you, so that can be useful. Keep in mind, some lists also play Oricorio to reduce the amount of damage you take. There are some other texts that are also sometimes thrown in there, but not usually. Oricorio, though, is often played in this list. However, the deck is pretty straightforward. As I mentioned, Force Seal Stone for greater consistency, as well as Battle VIP Pass, because you want to go very fast. Although, I don't know, Battle VIP Pass isn't necessarily the most useful card in this list. But as you are like a kind of like fast-paced deck, Crymomatic is nice. You can just get rid of those Battle VIP Passes, as well as Ultra Ball, a Nest Ball, Power Tablet. Power Tablet's a really nice card that Fusion Strike has access to as well, just boosting the amount of damage you do by 30 for each Power Tablet you play. So you play 3 on your turn, you're doing 90 more damage. Obviously, you can only play 4 throughout the game, but it's really nice. And then supporters, it's like very simple disruption, and then boss's orders to gust up. So you have hopefully access to the supporters whenever you need them with a powerful draw of Genesect. And then uniquely, this list plays, or I guess it's common with Mew Genesect. Also, by the way, there are 2 builds. There's the Fusion Strike Energy build and the one called the Double Turbo Energy build, which is this build. Both builds actually play Double Turbo Energy, but this is the Double Turbo build without Meloetta. So it plays 4 Lost Vacuum, which allows you to, 1, thin your hand, and then you get rid of either a tool or a stadium. And this list plays 3 Path to the Peak. Sometimes it will play 4. And pretty much what this does is it turns off abilities of Pokemon with rule boxes, which is really nice. Again, certain decks, obviously you're turning off your own Genesect V, though, so you have Lost Vacuum, and Force Seal Stone can also be used under Path to the Peak. And then in case you want another stadium, you have Lost City, which can be useful in certain situations, although, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of Lost City in this deck in particular, but it's fine. And everything else is pretty straightforward. Feather Ball is interesting because the Mew V and VMAX both have free retreat. And then Double Turbo allowing you to pay it for only 1 energy. To pay Mew VMAX's attack for only 1 energy. and then you can go ahead and copy whatever. It does reduce the damage you're doing a little, but you can buff it up with Choice Belt. Honestly, the deck's pretty straightforward, but it's a staple deck in the meta, and if you should know like what it does and know that it has Disruption, Gust, and like stuff like that. Next up, we have the build, of course, with me and Genesect again, but now focusing on Meloetta, although there's also Ice Cube. So Meloetta says it does for Psychic Colorless, which is actually relevant, meaning that you can copy it with Mew VMAX, but you can also use Meloetta's attack through Meloetta itself. You do 70 damage for each Fusion Strike energy attached to all of your Pokemon. So, of course, it's a special energy you can play 4. You do play 4. I mean, you can hit 280 damage, which is, obviously, it's more than Genesect's 210. So that can be nice. Keep in mind, if you only have 3 energy in play, you're doing the same amount as Genesect. We'll talk about Fusion Strike energy in a second, though. Ice Cube is essentially the same thing. Icicle Missile is bad, but Block Slider does 40 to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each Fusion Strike attached to all your Pokemon. Again, you can attack with this. You probably won't be attacking with this, but you can if you want. And then you can also go ahead and just snipe something, which is nice. I don't know how good it is. It's kind of situational, and a lot of people play Manaphy, and also you can only snipe 160, which isn't an absurdly high amount. But then this list, of course, runs the other supporters, Boss Orders, Iono, Judge. But then it runs Elisa Sparkle, which is a really powerful supporter that says choose up to 2 your Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. And then for each of those Pokemon, search your deck for Fusion Strike Energy, that special energy we talked about earlier, and attach it to that Pokemon. Fusion Strike Energy, quite simply, is, of course, it's a Fusion Strike card, which doesn't really matter, but it's a Fusion Strike card, and it can only be attached to Fusion Strike Pokemon, but then when it provides one of any type of energy, meaning it can provide the Water for Ice Cube or the Psychic for Meloetta. And then, of course, it can be accelerated with Elisa Sparkle and increases the damage from Meloetta and Ice Cube, which is really nice, allowing you to one-shot anything, really, because you can be hitting 280, as I said, plus Power Tablets, Choice Belt, or Cleansing Gloves, which does 30 more to Psychics like Mew VMAX and Gardevoir EX. You can be one-shotting anything. You still play Double Turbo Energy, we see Path to the Peak, we see some Lost Vacuums, very similar ideas. But then you can have this Turbo turn 1, where you go second, attack with Meloetta turn 1, and actually, essentially, again, a one-shot anything. Yeah, I believe you can one-shot anything turn 1, but I imagine there might be some weird scenarios where you can't, but it's very, very strong. Next up, we have another VMAX. This is actually the last VMAX deck we're going to be looking at today, I believe. It's focused around 2 Pokemon of a different battle style here. The Rapid Strike battle style, that being Inteleon VMAX and Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX. Inteleon's really interesting, and the main attacker, although it's very important for its ability as well, Double Gunner. You would discard a Water Energy from your hand, and then you put 2 damage counters on 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So that's 40 damage on the board. Not very focused, so in order to focus this, we have Radiant Alakazam, allowing you to move damage counters around. And it's nice, and of course you play lots of Water Energies to be able to capitalize on that. And then it's attack here, GMAX Spiral, does for Water Colorless. You do 70, you can return energy from this Pokemon to your hand, which you will almost always do, to do 140. Keep in mind, Rapid Strike Energy provides Water Fighting, but 2 of that type. So it can be used to pay Inteleon's attack cost in 1, or Rapid Strike Urshifu's in 2. In fact, it is necessary to pay Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX's attack cost, which we'll talk about now. Gale Thrust, if you move into the active for only 1 fighting, you do 150, which is very solid. In fact, I believe it's the most amount of damage you can do. It's essentially the most amount of damage you can do. You could also do this on the V for 3 energy, which is a thing. But then GMAX Rapid Flow, which is the amazing aspect of this Pokemon. For fighting colorless, you discard the energy attached, which is annoying, but it's at the end of the world. This attack does 120 to 2 your opponent's Pokemon. Obviously, 1 needs to be benched. This will be stopped by Manaphy, but there are ways of getting around that. And then this can be very dangerous to various board states, especially when you add on additional damage from Inteleon VMAX and other sources. Mostly Inteleon VMAX, though. And then it also has Octillery, allowing you to search any Rapid Strike cards from your deck, which is really nice because we have the other Rapid Strike attacker as well, Medicham V. And by the way, Octillery is essentially the only other engine piece in addition to Lumineon, which is just okay. But then Medicham V here is really interesting. Smash Uppercut attack is not great. You will use it occasionally, but not often. More than you think. You will definitely use it in the deck from time to time, but The main attack here is going to be Yoga Loop. Put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Not great for 2 colors, so you'll be using this for Rapid Strike Energy, probably. And if your opponent's Pokemon is knocked out by the stack, you take another turn after this. You can't do this infinitely. You can't just Yoga Loop, Yoga Loop, Yoga Loop. You can only do it once. However, you can then obviously take another turn and do something big with that. Most importantly, the main idea is that you're going to be using Inteleon VMAX's ability more times, and you just get more damage in play. It's quite nice. And then that's oftentimes when you use Smash Uppercut. You just attach another energy to do Smash Uppercut instead of Yoga Loop. And then it has Drapion as a tech for Mew. Drapion V is in some of the decks. It might just be this one, but it's very good for a counter to Mew VMAX and Radiant Alakazam, as I said, moves energy around. Aside from that, again, we see Force Seal Stone in these VMAX decks. That's very common. And then like ways to recover energy. You even have Cheryl to heal. We have Disruption, Consistency, Melanie as well to accelerate water energy, allowing you to attack different ways easier. You can even attack with Lumineon V if you want. Probably not, but you could. Yeah, this is honestly one of my favorite decks to play. It's kind of complicated. Matches can get a little weird, but it's really fun and honestly can be anything. But there's a lot going on. It's kind of inconsistent as well, so that's the trade-off, but it's very strong and very fun. Oh, also Echoing Horn I'll talk about. It was in, I think, one of the Mew lists, maybe both, but you put a basic Pokemon from your opponent's discard onto their bench. That means then you can hopefully put a low HP Pokemon and then just KO it. And then, as I said, to deal with Manaphy, you can just ping it with Inteleon VMAX, Radiant Alakazam, and Medicham V. Next up, we have another water deck. It's going to be Palkia VSTAR. In Origin Form, Palkia VSTAR are topped out with Chien-Pao EX. Chien-Pao EX, I'll say real quick, just search out energy, like attacks. It's pretty useful. But Origin Form Palkia VSTAR is the main attacker and purpose of this deck. It is, in fact, the main energy accelerator as well. In addition to Melanie, which I said before, accelerates water energy to Pokemon V and draws cards. Origin Form Palkia VSTAR here in attack Subspace Swell does 60 but 20 more for each benched Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, so it can do anywhere from 60 to 260. Generally, we'll be hitting in that like 200 to 220 range, so you can generally one-shot Pokemon Vs or basic Pokemon EXs. Basic Pokemon Vs or basic EXs. Sometimes, if not really V-Stars, you don't play any damage buff, but you can one-shot stuff. And it's actually very similar to Suicune V, which is the same thing. It's a basic, does less damage, less HP, has a moderately useful ability. But yeah, Palkia VSTAR here also has a really very powerful VSTAR power. As we look at the VSTAR decks, we're going to see less and less like Force Seal Stone. And by the way, I'm not talking about Lost Zone. If you want to hear about Lost Zone, actually, check my channel for another video. I've talked about it a bunch. I talked about it within single prizes, so if you want to hear about Giratina, that would be there. The Palkia, though, is very powerful. Its ability lets you accelerate up to 3 basic water energy from your Disco Pal to your water Pokemon any way you like. Notably, this is how you can get energy on Chien-Pao or Radiant Greninja. Most of the other Pokemon are water attackers. So then we have Suicune V, I mentioned earlier, is just like Palkia. Does a bit weaker, but it's a basic. Starmie V here, it punishes your opponent for having lots of energy attached to all their Pokemon. Which is useful against Arceus specifically, and also Swift is allows you to hit through effects, just like Mew VMAX's attack. That can be useful. It's not super useful, but it's a thing. It also has Free Retreat, which is fun. Aside from that, Radiant Greninja is actually very important. Because it has its ability, it can steal the cards, allowing you to draw more cards. It's a nice portion of the draw engine, but then its probably best attribute in this deck, I'm not sure. Its ability is amazing, but its attack's also amazing. Discard 2 energy, but then you do 90 to your opponent's Pokemon. This is very similar to Rapid Strike Archer VMAX's attack. It's not quite as strong, but it's still very, very good. KOs most of the smaller Pokemon as well, so it's pretty good. And then you see that it just like KO stuff. To get the energy on, as I said, you probably need to use Palkia. It's VSTAR power. There are some other ways. You could just like attach and like Raihan and stuff, but that's hard. So yeah, hopefully you can do that. And then in order to capitalize on that, the deck plays Cross Switcher, which is a way to guest up your opponent using an item card, and Canceling Cologne. As I said, Manaphy stops bench damage, so in order to counteract that, you can use Canceling Cologne. Canceling Cologne's I think that's the main use. It could be also to stop stuff like Tinglu, which is, as I said, I believe currently banned. At the time of release, it may not be banned anymore. I hope it's not banned. Hopefully they fix it in live, but that's also possibly part of the reason. Things similar to that. And then, yeah, that's about it, right? You see, like, it's almost a turbo deck with, like, Pokestop and for Battle VIP Pass and stuff like that. But it's an interesting deck, and I'd recommend you try it out. It's pretty cheap. You have most of the stuff, I'd say, if you're, like, a newer player. So that's cool. It's not, like, free, but it's relatively cheap. Jin Pow is probably better, but, it's up to you, right? This doesn't have a stage 2, which is cool. Next up, we have another way of playing Palkia, this time with the Gardevoir engine. Gardevoir and Kirlia. Kirlia discards cards from your hand to draw more cards. Gardevoir allows you to accelerate energy. So Gardevoir, I'll say, looks at the top 2 cards of your deck. If they're energy cards, you can accelerate. You can accelerate them, and if they're not, you just draw them. I don't believe you have to accelerate them either. But we see the Palkia reading Greninja again. And then we also see Kyogre. Kyogre is a really interesting card. It's a weird one. It's a bit like contentious in the Pokemon TCG because it's kind of inconsistent. And a lot of people, like, some people say it's really good. Some people say it's really bad. I'm not sure which boat I'm in. It's kind of inconsistent, which is why I don't like it. You just go the top 5 cards of your deck, then choose 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And this attack does 50 for each energy discard to each of those Pokemon. So let's say you discard 5 energy, you get lucky, or you can guarantee it by having no cards in deck and then throwing a bunch of energy back into your deck. Then you do 250, which is good, and can win the game 250 to 2 Pokemon. That's 500 damage. It can be very good, but it can also be awkward. So the way to get those energy in your deck is Energy Recycler and Super Rod, which just recover energy into your deck. The deck itself is like relatively, it's similar to the other one, kind of turbo, but you're not attacking turn 1. But turn 2, you're looking to do the same things with the Cross Switch or Canceling Cologne. Irida to search stuff out. It's more of a single prize deck, but it's a cool deck. The one thing I don't like about this deck is it doesn't play a lot of attackers, so that's kind of questionable. Super Rod is your friend in this deck, but actually very important to use at the right time. But it's an interesting deck, certainly. Oh, that's Kyogre. Okay, and then we have the other form of the... I don't remember what this like duo or trio is called. It's like Creation Trio. That might be wrong. Anyways, we got Origin Form Dialga V-Star, which is pretty insane. If you listen to the podcast, the Reasonably Effective podcast, which I run with Uncommon Fossil, we talked about this. We talked about all the V-Stars, but we talked about this one in particular a bunch. It's kind of questionable. But Metal Blast does 40 for each metal, or 40 plus 40 more for each metal attached to this Pokemon. So let's say you got 4 metal, 5. Let's say 5 metal. Then you're one-shotting a Pokemon V, a basic V, which is nice. You got 6. You're one-shotting a V-Star. 7. All of a sudden you're one-shotting like anything. So that's pretty good. But that's obviously a lot of energy. And then your V-Star power here, Star Chronos, does 220 for 5, and then you take another turn. So you need some way of getting energy. So you have Magnezone here, which looks at the top 6 cards of your deck and attach any number of metal energy you find there to your Pokemon any way you like. You shuffle the other cards back. So that's pretty nice, but obviously inconsistent as well. So the deck plays 20 metal energy, which is pretty crazy. You actually can capitalize off of this with Adaman, which is interesting. You discard 2 metal energy from your hand, and then you search your deck for any 2 cards, that being the like Rare Candy and the Magnezone, probably. It also plays Irida to search out Rare Candy easier, plus it plays Lumineon and Radiant Greninja to grab those. It also surprisingly plays Drapion. I haven't seen that too much. But then Zamazenta. By the way, this is like one of the craziest decks in the game. It's pretty weird, but it's fun. Zamazenta, this Pokemon has any energy attached to it. It takes 30 less. That's nice. Meaning it's pretty tanky, but Retaliate, if one of your Pokemon was knocked out last turn, you do 220. Otherwise, you just do 100 for 3. It's debatably the best metal Pokemon in the game right now. It's really nice, really like easy to just attack with. Obviously, it's a bit expensive for its attack cost, but it's still pretty cool. And then we also have the Lightning package as a part of this deck. So you have Stormy Mountains and Miraidon EX to search out basic Lightning Pokemon. So Magnemite, we have the Lightning Magnemite evolving into the Metal Magnezone. So that's really powerful because it just lets you search it out easier. And then you have Rotom V, another Lightning Pokemon that just says draw 3 cards. Really, really nice for setting up in the early game. And then you have like interesting combos like Thornton. And plus EXP share, that's cool. Yeah, the deck can like have problems. I'll say that. But it's an interesting deck. And next up, we have another cool Pokemon, a VSTAR. This one's going to be Darkrai VSTAR, a really fun one that says it does 30 plus 30 more for each metal, for each dark energy attached to all your Pokemon. Kind of like Dialga here, except you have all sorts of different ways of accelerating energy. Galarian Moltres V and Galarian Moltres. I'll talk about Galarian Moltres a bit more specifically, but they both accelerate energy to themselves, and Dark Patch accelerates energy. Darkrai V-Star's V-Star power also recovers items, so you can use Dark Patch again to do more damage. And we see, excuse me, and then we see Pokestop because it's an item-based deck. So then we see this Galarian Moltres. It's a single prizer, but 120 HP. But then you see its insane ability that says when you play it, you attach 2 Dark Energy from your hand to it, which is very good because you can just play a third Dark Energy or whatever energy. And then you can do Fiery Wrath, which does 20 but 50 more for each prize your opponent's taken. So let's say they've taken 5 prize cards, you're hitting 270 damage, which is pretty insane and will hopefully just win you the game. That's why you have stuff like Clara to be able to use it easier in Palpad. But this deck's a fast deck, research. It's a fun one. It's definitely a deck I'd recommend you try. I haven't actually played it much, but it's a fun deck. Last, but I'm not sure. This is an interesting deck. I was going to say it's not least. Hisuian Zoroark V-Star, one of my favorites as well. It's got its attack Tickling Curse. It does for 2 colors on a stage one, kind of like Mew. It does 50 for each damage counter. For each of your Pokemon that has a damage counter on it. And Phantom Star also is a Professor's Research. Discard, draw 7. This is really powerful because it just does so much damage if you got a full bench of damage Pokemon plus Hisuian Zoroark itself is damage. The way you do this is you have Gengar, which has, and you can attack with Gengar, but it says once on your turn, if it's in your discard, you can put it onto your bench, and then if you do put 3 damage counters on it, which is actually good in this case because you can use Damage Pump to move. It says move up to 2 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to your other Pokemon in any way you like. You move 2 of those damage counters off of Gengar onto 2 other Pokemon, so you get 2 Gengars, 2 damage pumps, so you have damage counters on all your Pokemon now. And then you also have Gapejar Bog. When you play Pokemon down, you just damage them. And even plays like Jacques to search out Gengar and Hisuian Zoroark. And then it has an attack, put 2 damage counters on your opponent's active for each of your opponent's benched. So essentially it does 20 per bench they have, can do 100. It's okay in certain matchups. And then you also have Radiant Alakazam to move damage counters around on their side. You can Sharon's care to heal, which is interesting. It's a bit of a weird deck because it kind of struggles to one-shot. It's good, but it doesn't always one-shot everything. But it's definitely one of my favorite decks in the game as well. I don't play it a lot, but it's a cool deck. But yeah, those are all the V-Stars and VMAX decks. I hope you enjoyed. I highly recommend playing a lot of these. They're some of the most fun decks in the game. And they're not too expensive because a lot of them are free on Pokemon TCG Live. So that's the best part. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment if I missed anything. As I said, I talked about Giratina as well as Goodra in another video. And I think I talked about Regidrago. I talked about Arceus and Lugia in another video as well. So yeah, Arceus, Lugia, Regidrago. I didn't just talk about regular Regidrago because it's like bad, but that's a deck as well. But I hope you enjoyed. And as always, I'm excited to see you next time.